for our last session of this season. Last but powerful. It's going to be all about, as you know, scams, frauds, all the things that we're now facing that we never had to really think about before. And it was pointed out to me that you can get the information about how to do it anywhere on the internet. So everybody has access to how to do these things. So we need to know what they are and how to prevent ourselves from being caught in that web. I'm going to turn this program over, even though we don't have all our panelists because one of them is still en route. I think we nevertheless can begin. And I'm going to turn the program over to Tina, who is going to introduce it.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you all. This mic is better, actually. Okay. Thank you all. Good morning. There we go. Okay. Rarely am I told I need a mic, but thank you. Welcome, everybody. My name is Tina Sarangani. I'm a proud member of the Summit and very excited to welcome you here to talk about a very important topic with some incredible experts in our field, thank goodness. So we all know that as the world has become somewhat easier to navigate, or perhaps not so easy to navigate, I should say, as we've all lived, society has become more sophisticated, so have the criminals around us. And it is becoming increasingly easy to do business online. It is also increasingly easy to have your identity stolen, which happened to my husband and several people I know. The internet is an incredible tool, but we have to be careful in all of our dealings, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. So I'm thrilled to introduce and have two of our panelists introduce themselves, as well as their associates. I know we'll be soon joined by Christine Hatfield, who currently serves as the Chief Child Abuse and Elder Abuse in the Special Prosecutions Division at the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. So once she arrives, she'll also be able to add incredible expertise to this conversation. But first, I'd like to have the panelists next to me take a moment to briefly introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Lieutenant P.J. Trujillo. I work for the Village and Mamaroneck Police Department, and I'm in charge of the Investigations Division.
I didn't even know we had an investigation.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Corrigan. Oh, sorry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul Corrigan. I'm a branch manager with Wells Fargo in Larchmont. And I'd like to thank Larry for the opportunity to be here. A number of years in banking. I'm with Joanne Grancelli, who's a relationship banker with Wells Fargo in Larchmont. Actually, the mayor of banking in Larchmont. Joanne's been with the bank 49 years.
Wow.
All of it in Larchmont, so a lot of expertise and experience.
Well, we're very lucky to have you both this morning. And let's start with just first of all, what are the current hottest scams impacting our area recently?
So there's quite a few, unfortunately. And I have a long list that I'm going to break down for you guys.
Yeah, please.
So in 2020, victims lost about $4.1 billion in scams.
Ooh.
Usually these are done online, in person, or over the phone. Scammers typically target people who are living alone, immigrants, a grieving spouse, people suffering from disabilities or illness, or the elderly. Why are the elderly being targeted? Our seniors tend to be trusting, polite, and kind. They may own their own home or have savings, which makes them especially appealing to scammers. Most common scams target elderly individuals, but anyone can become a victim. One of the first scams that we've seen are... Sure. Is that better?
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
One of the scams that we've seen are health insurance or healthcare scams. Because every U.S. citizen or legal resident over the age of 65 qualifies for Medicare, it is easy for scam artists to know exactly what to say when trying to scam the elderly into providing their personal information. In this scam, the perpetrator poses as a representative of a Medicare or health insurance company and calls the victim to tell them there may be something wrong with their account. They will ask for personal identification information and possibly banking information as well. They may also claim to provide services to set up makeshift clinics where they'll try to bill Medicare but pocket the cash. To prevent this from happening, gather the caller's information to tell them we will call them back. And then call your health insurance company and verify the information is correct. The next one that we see is the romance schemes. Online dating's new form, right? We're talking about online, how things are easy now, which means scammers are quick to take advantage of victims who are lonely. These romance scammers will create an elaborate fake profile on dating sites and social media, using them to exploit victims. The scammers will often pretend to be overseas and needing money for visa or travel expenses. On the other side of the country and requesting money for some type of emergency or medical services, with the promise to meet once they're medically cleared and well enough to come back to the country. These scammers are in it for the long haul. They spend months building trust. As a result, victims lose close to $84 million in romance gains in 2019 alone. To prevent this from happening, be suspicious of sending money to people that you may have met online or in person. Speak to family members and friends and law enforcement about the situation before sending any amount of money to anyone that you've met in a dating profile. I'll stop right
Yes, thank you. I mean, that's incredible already. There is, again, you highlighted the real complexity of this, and I know that it's not, it sounds like based on what you're describing, we really are targeting the most vulnerable subset of people. And, as somebody who career-wise researches Alzheimer's disease, the increasing sort of early stages of dementia, people can be more susceptible and vulnerable to these. Paul, what do you see in your space?
All of that. Unfortunately. And it's something that's just exploded. I was mentioning to the lieutenant, earlier that when I started my career years ago in banking, there was fraud was something that really wasn't talked about that much. We didn't see it that often. I started my career in Chicago and never lost a dime on a bad check or any kind of fraud. Today, it's just the opposite. 5 years ago, you used to see it maybe once a month, and then it became a couple times a month, then it became once a week. Now we're seeing it almost on a daily basis. And so it's incumbent upon us to constantly be training, knowing what to look for, knowing how to thwart it if we can. We see everything from computer scams. So you'll get a message on your computer. Your computer has a virus. You need to send us $40,000 to get rid of the virus. And sad to say, people fall for it. We've actually had our customers come in to the branch and they'll have like unusually large transactions that they'll want to execute. We're trained to kind of pick up on that and make sure that we're asking the right questions of our customers. And that's where we uncover that it's fraud. Checks are constantly a problem. We're always counseling our customers to not write checks. That if you have to write a check, make sure you take it into the post office. Don't put it in a post box. The checks get intercepted. They get washed.
What does that mean?
Washed. Yeah. And that's kind of more sophisticated too. What it means is there's chemicals that are pretty common that the fraudsters can use to change the amount on the check, or to change the payee on the check, but still retain signatures, still retain account numbers. So that check that you're mailing to your gardener for $300 becomes $3,000 to someone else. And so we're seeing all kinds of different kinds of fraud. So it's really we're trying to provide our customers with top tips on how to avoid it.
So if I may then, just for my own clarification, is then paying online, paying via an avenue like Zelle or Venmo or some other online, that's a safer way to do business, you would say?
It is, absolutely.
Okay.
Much safer. I agree with that.
Yeah. No question. Christine, I want to welcome you. Thank you. I would love for you to tell the group a little bit about the scams you're seeing across Westchester County. What's sort of the climate right now? What are the biggest things we're seeing?
So we get easily 200 cases. We easily get 200 cases a year. In the DA's office, I'm in elder abuse, but there's also an economic crimes bureau and high tech bureau, and we, collaboratively, we get easily 200 cases a year. There's many financial scams, and it really is, they think they're targeting the vulnerable. We see it towards teens, we see it towards seniors. They hope that people are not educated in this area. They hope that they're going to get people by surprise. The biggest thing we see are these scams. Typically, it's all by phone. So, as you were saying before, like the IRS scams, for example. The IRS, just let's face it, they're not going to call you. If they want to reach you, they're going to mail you something. So, a grandparent scam is another thing. Has anybody, by a show of hands, has anyone heard of the grandparent scam? Okay. Now, it's not necessarily that you're a grandparent.
Yesterday.
What?
Yesterday.
Oh boy. All right, we'll talk about that after. But it's very typical to get a call of someone that you love. And what you're going to see, the trend is there's an urgency to the call. Okay, you have to make a decision quickly. So whether it's a decision because you have a loved one who's in trouble, who may be arrested and needs bail money or needs something to get out of it, you don't have the opportunity to think about it. You just have to act. Or if it's like there's the lottery scam, you won big. Well, yeah, but you have to decide now. You want it? If it's too good to be true, it's unlikely that it's true. I'd like to win also. So you have these scams, utility scams, where it's in the middle of a snowstorm and they're going to turn your heat off because they didn't get money for your utility. Or it's the heat of the summer and the air conditioner is going to be turned off. So it's always this sense of urgency, and they want to, use that. So what we suggest in all of these scams is that you really just, as hard as it is, you take a pause. You don't ever give your social security, your credit card number, your date of birth, any pertinent personal information. You take a pause. If this sounds so great, all right, what's your number? I'll call you back. And then either, if it's the grandparent scam, call your grandson or granddaughter. Guess what? They're probably going to answer the phone if they're awake. And, and you realize they're fine. Or it's some sort of investment. Well, let's talk to a loved one. Does this sound right? I'm telling you, 10 times out of 10, it's not.
Lieutenant Trujillo, I have a question for you. When you, or for any of you, how do they find us? Like, when you go back and you launch these investigations, how do they even get your information in the first place?
So we all have online profiles. Anytime you sign up for some type of how would I explain this? If you want to get some points on a credit card or something, or if you go online and you sign up for a program, that information is always showed. These apps on your phone, they track your information. They have your name, date of birth, social media. All that information gets extracted and gets pushed out and sold to companies. And eventually your profile becomes apparent online. People can find you. And all they need is a little bit of information to start the process. And once they get you going, once they start talking to you on the phone, they're able to verify further information for you.
I'm curious because both of you, and I know you work with children and with older people, as for those of us who have children, grandchildren, who are potentially going to use social media at some point, which we all hope is really never, but we know is going to happen sooner rather than later, how do we encourage our teenagers to protect themselves online?
I'm sure you have a lot to say on this, but one thing I'm going to say is these social media is our young children, teens. That's what makes them vulnerable. So they often get on these encrypted sites. And what happens is, for something that I see is sextortion, for example. So what that means for anyone who doesn't know is that, oh, I'm 13, you're 13, send me a picture. And then the picture is not just a facial shot. Then they ask for, something that's compromising and what ends up happening is once that person, first of all, they're not 13, I'm sure you realize that, they have this picture and they utilize that to say, send me more or I'm going to make this public. I'm going to, or send me money or I'll do something. So that's very often something that happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead, please.
So as a father of two children, I have a 16-year-old and a 15-year-old, both boys, and they're on Discord, they're on these gaming platforms, they're into video games, unfortunately. But I constantly speak to my kids about real-world stuff, I expose them to it. I tell them not all the details, but I plant those seeds in their mind about what's going on in the world today. And I don't shelter them. I let them know, listen, you have to be careful. People will take advantage of you. People want to put you in a compromising position where you show something and they'll try to extort you and force you to do certain things. So just, I guess, be aware of it and speak to your children like they're adults, you know?
We used to joke when I was growing up that my mother had a morbid story of the week to keep us in check, and I think there's something to it. She wasn't.
Absolutely.
What are the basic things we should all have in place with our financial institutions to protect ourselves here?
Lots of things. We've got things like balance alerts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you see a fluctuation in the amount of money that you have with the bank, you're alerted, via your phone, via your computer. So you'd be able to see if there's something happening in your account. Again, using online bill pay, using electronic bill pay, much more secure than writing checks. Our worry is that the level of sophistication is increasing.
Yeah.
And so there's one of the latest scams we have. It's called spoofing. And spoofing means that the fraudster is using Wells Fargo's phone number. So you get a phone call on your cell phone. It says Wells Fargo. It'll even say Larchmont on it. It'll have our branch's phone number on it. And so you'll answer. It's my bank calling. Sure. The other party is saying things like, did you just spend $1,000 in Phoenix, Arizona? And our customer will say no. And the fraudster will say, well, no, that's good. That means we caught it for you. Your account's been compromised. We've opened up a new account on your behalf. You need to now transfer money into that new account. And this is a level of sophistication that it's not elderly that's just caught up in this. We've dealt with young people, actually college students, that have been caught up in this where they think it's their bank calling and they actually transfer money. Artificial intelligence is another thing we're very concerned about because now voices will be able to be mimicked or imitated. So it will sound like your wife. It'll sound like your grandson. Yeah. So the level of sophistication is increasing, and that's something that we're concerned about. But in terms of tips, if someone's asking you for money, hang up. Wells Fargo is not going to ask you for money. We're not going to ask you to transfer money. We're not going to open up an account on your behalf. So if someone is asking you for money, hang up, pause, call someone you know. Would be a top tip that we would advise. If you can avoid writing checks, please avoid writing checks. Use things like balance alerts to monitor your account.
I just want to add to that. So the spoofing is big, and it'll say Con Ed. It'll say, they can really mimic. It's not just the banks. One of the biggest tips is, okay, you're not going to be asked personal information, and you owe money and pay over the phone. So I would hang up, like was suggested, but then call that place. So you call the bank. You call Con Ed. Whoever it is. I mean, there's a real problem with IRS and you're concerned. Well, call IRS. There's numbers for everything. But by you calling, you know where you're calling. In terms of those people who just want to write checks, you use the permanent ink, and it can't be washed off. I mean, if you can do online, that's always the preference.
I am curious. So now you brought up AI, which is, thank you, an excellent point. Where do you both feel you guys are in your ability to identify these criminals and, help these individuals who is it becoming, I guess, harder for you all, and how are you adapting to the increasing complexity of these?
So that's a difficult one because AI is a new technology and we're playing catch up. So it's going to be a process. It's going to take some time for us to catch up to. But we try to do subpoenas, we try to get phone records, we try to get credit card records, we try to find cell towers, we do things like that. But with AI specifically, we're adapting to it as we speak.
Do you, when people come forward and they say to you, Lieutenant, I've had my identity stolen, somebody, do you truly work up this seems like it's so common. It's got to create such a backlog of cases. I mean, do you truly have the bandwidth, both of you, to actually work up all of these
Yeah,
cases?
absolutely. We take each case as serious as possible. We work it from beginning to end. We just had a case a couple of weeks ago where someone used someone else's information to buy a phone in AT&T. Obviously, that wasn't a real person buying the phone. It was someone that used someone else's identity. But they also did it in New Jersey. And we were able to link up with the New Jersey Police Department and put our cases together, and we were able to identify someone. So it takes time. It's not going to happen in 1 hour like you see on TV, but it takes time. It takes time. And we definitely do have the bandwidth for it. Absolutely.
Christine, do you want to add anything to that?
And we work collaboratively. There's teams. We have a multidisciplinary team where we work with the Attorney General's office, the FBI, law enforcement, police departments throughout. We have a high-tech bureau. So that collaborative efforts really helps us in tackling these issues.
Can I ask, who are most commonly like the perpetrators? What is the characteristic? Who is committing these crimes?
You get a whole array.
Yeah.
Two opposite sides of the spectrum. People locally, people in Nigeria. It's everywhere. So
a lot out of the country.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. One just question for you. Paul, my bank so I do a lot of online banking, but my bank often communicates with me via text message. And so they'll say, oh, there's a fraud alert, or there's this. Is that a reliable, have you noticed, or any of you, any scams where they're now pretending like this is Chase on text message?
Haven't seen that yet.
Okay.
Thankfully, haven't seen that yet. But speaking of text and emails, please don't click on links. If you get a suspicious email come across, don't click on any attachments or links on your phone or on your computer. But we haven't quite seen that level of sophistication yet, but it's probably coming.
Yeah.
I just want to add one thing. In addition to all these scams, and many of them are abroad, sometimes it's right within your life. So home health aides, the caregivers, who your power of attorney is, because often there's misuse of power of attorney. You're giving over your decision making very often on all your financial matters, your legal matters, to a power of attorney. So sometimes it's not that stranger from Nigeria. Sometimes it's right within your walls. The other thing I wanted to mention is my colleague is here from the Economic Crimes Bureau, and she may have some tips in addition. Nicole Gamble.
Yes. Yes, we'd love to. Come to the mic. Yeah, come on up. Have a seat. I think the other thing is that I would love, so you're talking about home health aides, you're talking about people not in Nigeria or abroad or, but in like your actual day-to-day life. Talk to me a little bit about the people who come and show up at your doorstep, the Con Ed thieves, the ones who take your mail from your mailbox. What can you tell us about those scams locally?
That happens all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And the biggest tip for that is don't let anyone in your home. Everyone wants to be so nice. Oh, would you like a cup of water? Oh, you need help. You need to use the phone. This is what they're doing. They're trying to get into the house, and then, you really should not open the door and let anyone in that you don't know who they are. That's just the basic.
Yeah.
I'll elaborate on that a little bit more. So we had a few cases where scammers will pose as utility workers, such as Con Edison or from the water company, and they'll ring your doorbell and report that there's some type of leak in the system and you need to check out your meter. People trust them and they'll let them into the house and they'll bring them downstairs to their basement. But while they're doing that, another person's coming in through the front door or the back door and will ransack your house as you're downstairs with the utility worker. And by the time you notice what happened, it's too late. They already left. So to prevent this, someone knocks on your door and says they're from Con Edison or from the water company. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me just get dressed. Close the door. Call Con Ed. Call law enforcement. Call your neighbor. Hey, just come over real quick. I have someone at the door. I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. That's great advice. I have to tell you, one place that I've had my credit card stolen is the gas station. And it seems like I put it in the reader, and there's been a couple of places where we just stopped frequenting that gas station because the number was clearly compromised with that. What is it about credit cards and readers? How do we use our credit cards more safely?
Great question. The devices are put on
Skimmers.
Skimmers, yeah. We put on ATMs. We put on talking about devices that are put on to basically retrieve credit card information, skimmers, I guess is the common term. Your credit card company, I hope, called you and said that something had...
No, it was only that we got a fraudulent charge later, and
Okay.
it was clearly linked to the... Yeah.
Okay. I guess be careful where you're using your using your cards. I had it happen to me at a local store in Larchmont. Where next thing I know, I was looking at transactions on my credit card account, and there were meal charges in I think it was Peru. It was the same day. It happened so quickly. I was checking, I think, just the transaction that I had just executed, and it couldn't have been just maybe an hour or two later where there was actually charges out of the United States. Monitor your accounts, I guess, is the best tip. There, monitor them as frequently as you can. Always a good idea to use online, use our mobile applications, digital applications, where you can just be on your phone. It takes 2 seconds, and you can look at those transactions.
So that's actually a point of contention between me and my mother, who's appalled that I just tap my phone and pay for something. But that seems like is it a safer way than swiping my credit card?
Yes, absolutely. We're encouraging our customers now, actually in the branch, just to tap their card rather than insert it. So if you're using that point of sale at a gas station, use your phone, or if you're going to use your card, tap it rather than insert it.
Okay. So therefore, I won that debate. We can.
And just let me add into that. If you're going to travel outside the country and you're going to use your credit card or debit card, call your bank institution and say, hey, I'm going to be in Peru. I'm going to be somewhere else in the next 5 or 10 days. So you might see some transactions on the credit card that are going to be from outside the country. It's going to be me. So it doesn't get frozen while you're in travel.
One question for you. Oh, sorry.
The lady was going to answer.
Oh, yes, please. Sorry, I didn't see that.
If anyone had a particular question. My name is Nicole Gamble. Thank you for allowing us to come today. Sorry for my late departure and late arrival. You've all worked very hard to earn the money that you have and to live in the community that you live in. But you have to be vigilant and safeguard that. When someone comes into your home, you have to verify who they are. But know that when they're in your home, they're looking at your routine. They know where you put your checkbook. They know where you keep your purse. So if you have an assistant in the house, or even a housekeeper, or even a cleaning service, just be mindful that you put it in the locked desk, but they see where you put the key. When you're on the computer, we're always on the computer. Someone can be over your shoulder watching as you're signing in to your phone, if you have a unique password on your phone, but even when you're in your email, okay? We always know to look for somebody behind us at an ATM, but even when we're in that intimate setting in our home, we trust the people, but my motto is trust but verify. And, if you have to do your banking, make sure you're alone in your room and the door's closed and no one's there. I know it sounds silly. They may not do it the first week or the first month, but I've been doing this for 25 years, just financial crime prosecution, and it's always the person who knows you. It's only routinely now, because of scams online, that it's people abroad. But it is every single time the housekeeper, the bookkeeper, the maid, the home health aide, okay? It's always that. It also could be a neighbor. I don't want to tell war stories, but I have 1,000 of them. And you asked, what do they look like? They look like you, every version of you. They look like your cousin, your uncle, your aunt, your niece, your nephew, your grandson, your granddaughter. Literally, it's every race, every ethnicity, every age group, and male and female. I've had it both ways. I've even had family members take from other family members. A mother stole from a son. I mean, money and greed have no bounds, okay? And so everyone can be a suspect, and I prosecuted too many to count people who have taken advantage of the trust of someone else. Christine mentioned powers of attorney. Be very careful who you pick as your power of attorney. Consider having more than one person have to be the power of attorney. Consider not checking the box that says everything. If you only want them to be around because you're going to go to Daytona and you want them to handle a real estate transaction, don't be ashamed or afraid to put just for that real estate transaction. You don't have to say, and you know what, be careful about gifts for themselves. We've seen that they take advantage of the fact, and we are unable then to say that that is a criminal act because you have given permission and authority 20 years ago to them to make gifts to themselves, gifts to their kids, and handle all of your matters, which includes selling your home, making themselves own your home. You might be talked into doing that for estate planning. Really just check. Make sure that's really what you want to do. There are other things, I'm not an expert on it, but there's trust. Other things that you could do to safeguard your home rather than putting it in someone else's home. Because you know what? We are still a named state. What's the person's name? The property is in the person's name. They own it. That means they can sell it, they can mortgage it, and you can be evicted. I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but these things can happen.
Question for you.
Yeah.
So one of my next questions is, if you have a person in your life who's aging and you're concerned about them, and my husband's own grandmother was, she was with it, but she was really victim to one of these types of scams. What can you do if you have somebody in your life where you have some concerns about their cognition? Because I imagine those are some of your primary victims. How can you protect them?
It's very difficult, but you have to be the advocate for them. You have to choose their association. If everyone has kids, you chose who they were going to play with. You chose the school that they went to. You chose their doctors. The same thing happens with an adult that has impairment, but even more so. I know you can't be there all the time, but you have to have eyes. Cameras everywhere. Tell the person who's coming into your home that there are cameras, but don't put them in the places you think that, you can put them some that you could see, but others you can disguise. They sell them in alarm clocks. Yes. They sell, you could use an inside Ring camera. You could buy them everywhere. And there's an app on your phone. You can't be there. Again, trust but verify, monitor every action, and then take everything out of the home, not just the family jewels, but the person's identification. Your parent doesn't need to have their license and their insurance card with them all the time. You can take custody of that, and you can set it up with the doctor so that if you're not able to go with the doctor, you've already provided the information so the caregiver can go with the person to the doctor's office. But there's no need for them to have money. If they want a few dollars, give them literally a few dollars, because when cognition is an issue, a few dollars seems like $1 million, okay? But they don't need to have any personal identifying information on them. They don't have to have a checkbook in the house, no credit cards in the house, and make all the billing statements for everything that they have come to you. Okay, just change it completely and entirely, because I'm saying they're watching everything, and when they're taking care of your loved one, they're also looking at everything that's in the home.
Yeah, it's very scary and sort of stressful, but I think it's important to be on guard, which is what you're sort of advising us. I'm curious, how successful have all of you, like if, for all these people that you've come into contact with who've lost money to these scams, how successful have you been in getting it back for them? Or is it just a wash? You can start with you, Christine.
So in the cases that I deal with, so if it's the scams that are perpetrators that are abroad, almost never. Okay, never. When it's the other area that really Nicole was touching on, that I really get in the Elder Abuse Bureau most often, is where it's a son or daughter or a grandson or granddaughter who is the perpetrator, against the senior person. And usually that's in a situation where they're either lost their job, have mental health issues, substance abuse issues, so they don't have the ability to recoup and pay back. So unfortunately, in both scenarios, not very often.
And does your bank have any insurance or any ability to get this?
We lose a lot of money on fraud every year. Large banks lose billions of dollars, where we're actually reimbursing customers. So that case I was mentioning with my credit card used locally in Larchmont and ending up with lunches in Peru, Wells Fargo reimbursed me for those transactions. When a customer's initiating the transaction, that's where there's a problem. So in other words, that spoofing I was mentioning before, where we've opened up a new account on your behalf, go ahead and send $2,000. When it's customer initiated like that, you're not going to get the money back. So if it's someone stole your credit card and is using it in Peru, we'll make sure that you get reimbursed. But if you're initiating transfers, if it's a wire transfer, or you're using online banking to make a transfer, you've initiated it, and so unfortunately it's your loss.
In just a moment, I'm going to open it up to all of you for questions, so I hope you'll raise your hand and ask our very esteemed expert group here. I would love it, and I know you've given us a lot of tips, each of you, throughout this, but I'd love it if each of you could just provide one tip, the most important tip you think, to protect yourself from this type of scamming.
I would start by saying, if someone calls you, if someone comes to your door, if you get an email about something, slow down. Don't fall for pressure tactics. Don't fall for the urgency that they're putting upon you. Okay, what's your name, sir? What's your name, ma'am? Okay, what's your phone number? Okay, can I call you back in 5 minutes? I have to go to the bathroom real quick. Whatever, make something up, I don't care. But just tell them you're going to call them back. Or, I'll be right down, give me 1 second. Slow it down. Don't fall for their pressure tactics. That's what I would say.
I would just feed off of that urgency. I would then take it one step further. Not only slow down, but then I would take it upon yourself to make a phone call, whether it's to the family member, to someone you can check with that you really trust, or wherever the institution is that's calling, call that, or the company, whatever it is. You take it under your control and check and verify.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would echo both those thoughts. It's pause. If someone's asking you for money, just hang up. Call the local branch. Call Joanne. Well, if Joanne will answer the phone, and you'll know you don't have the right person. But yeah, I would say just pause. Again, if someone's asking you for money, there's something probably wrong. The other tip, if it's possible, is please try to stop writing checks.
Yes.
It is so prevalent today. There's actually now online gangs that are working with post office employees to open envelopes, take a photograph of the check, post the check online for sale. Oh my God. And so that criminals can actually buy checks and reissue them. So if you can, please stop writing checks. Use online banking, online bill pay.
Thank you.
How many of you have an answering machine at home? An answering machine. How many of you have an answering machine at home? Okay. For those of you that have an answering machine at home, change the message. Have the automated message say on it that it came with, or have a younger person come and leave the message for you. Don't say that it's Barb, okay? Have it be your last name, or have it be, hey, you reached us, we'll call you back. And then the second thing is, for those of you, the reason I say that is, if I call you and I'm a scammer, I can tell that you're alone and about how old you are by the sound of your voice. And I know that's a number that I want to keep calling, okay? The other thing is, let the answering machine actually do its job. When you see a number or hear the phone ringing and you don't recognize the number, and I mean the entire number, and you don't see the first name and the last name of the caller, not that it's just Lori, your best friend's name is Lori, it's going to say Lori and Lori's last name. wait for it. The reason is because of the spoofing. And if you don't recognize the number, I know it's not rude, even if you're home, to not answer the phone. That's why you have an answering machine. My third thing is move the phone away from the recliner or the sofa. Because sometimes we take naps. I do when I'm off. You fall asleep, and the first thing that happens when you're sleeping and the phone rings is you pick it up. And we don't make the best decisions when we're not fully awake, and people can take advantage of us. People can record our voices and say hello and not yes, because yes can be recorded and then utilized to authorize a transaction. Don't mean to scare you, but I do mean to scare you.
That's the theme of today's
Awareness.
Very true.
Situational awareness.
Thank you. Do we have questions from the audience? Yes, back there too, please.
I'll bring the mic.
Thank you.
I understand how checks are stolen and washed. I don't understand how they're cashed and why law enforcement can't find out who cashed them or what the account is that they will put in. That's the mystery to me.
So, how they're stolen, multiple ways. Well, one is they go fishing through the mailboxes.
Yeah, I understand that.
Okay.
I don't understand how the person who stole them isn't caught
Okay.
when they're cashed.
So usually these people will take the check and go to a bank, use a fake or stolen ID. They'll wear a COVID mask, and you can't see their face when they're cashing these checks or making these remote deposits online through the ATM. What we usually do is we'll do a subpoena to the bank, work with the DA's office, to get video and to get ID from the bank. But it usually comes back to a fake ID, a fake account, and you can't see the person's face. It's very difficult. Now there's times that criminals aren't smart and they use their real license. They don't wear a mask. They'll get caught. But, sometimes after getting caught once, you don't make that same mistake. Next time you learn about how you got arrested the first time, and the next time you wear a mask and you use a fake ID.
My question is, if your identity is stolen, can you walk us through the steps of what you should do?
So I would report it to all 3 credit reporting agencies. I would notify Social Security Administration about that your Social Security has been stolen and your ID has been stolen as well. I would document it with the police department, because then the credit reporting agencies will want a copy of that report. And I would close out my accounts and open up new accounts.
I would also put a fraud alert on your Social Security number with the credit bureaus. I would also put a fraud alert on your Social Security number with the credit bureaus so that no one can walk into Nordstrom and open up an account, or Home Depot, an automatic account. It also prevents you from going into a store to get an instant store credit, but it's just another measure so that someone can't walk in if they have your information to get a $2,000 in your name.
Could you both repeat this slowly?
No problem. So I would notify all 3 credit report agencies about what's happened. I would notify Social Security Administration that your identity has been stolen. I would close the accounts out.
And then when you call the 3 bureaus to report that you've been an identity theft victim, ask them to put a fraud alert on your Social Security number so that no one can get an instant credit card or credit line in your name.
And just make sure you report it to the police department and document it with the police department.
I'm understanding that I think that if you use Apple Pay, that they use an alias credit card number so that the merchant never has access to your actual credit card. that transaction is being posted.
Yeah, the numbers can be encrypted or scrambled, if you will, to protect.
I would say is the safest.
I use Apple Pay currently for different accounts that I've paid. I haven't had any issues, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Eventually they will figure that out too, but so far things like that happen. That's okay. So I'll let Sabrina control that. I'll wait for that.
How effective are the identity theft protection services like LifeLock? We have been subscribers for the last 20 years, and they can do a lot of things, I'm sure, but they cannot protect us from telephone and email scam.
I can't speak to particular companies. I think that is a great idea that you have that. I think that that's a financial protection. But to the extent that you initiate the transaction, then you need to safeguard yourself from doing that. I don't know if they have a policy, what they cover, what they don't. I'm only familiar with the commercials that I see on television. But you're right. When you still have to be vigilant in how your information is out, what permissions you grant other people to do business for you or transactions that you approve. Like by not clicking on emails, by not clicking on text messages. Funny story, I'm sure if you belong to CVS, they say, if you click here, 25% off. They send me a text message every week. Mm-hmm. I refuse to click into it because I know that coupon should be on my CVS card when I go into the store. Yeah. That's how bananas I am about not clicking on text messages. Or my Costco membership is expiring. They sent me an email saying it, and I could do it online. I won't. I'll do it at the register when I go to Costco. I don't know if it's a spoof email. It looks just like the Costco logo, but I believe it is a spoof email, just another attempt to get my credit card information. So you really just have to be vigilant, and I have to remind myself every day to do that.
So sorry. Alina, I just want to check with you how much time we have. Or 2 minutes. Okay, so we can take a few more questions. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just have a question. So much good information coming forth that I didn't know when I was organized this week. Lieutenant Trujillo, question for you. You had mentioned a couple of items in our conversation I think are worthy of repetition. One would be where to make the exchange of merchandise under a Facebook marketplace situation, and also the job searching scam.
So that's a great question. The Facebook marketplace scam, and I almost got caught in one this past weekend. I was on Facebook, and I saw some really nice lawn furniture that was for sale. And I don't even need it, but it was really nice, and it was nicer than what I have. So I was like, oh, you know what? Let me take a stab at it. So I contacted the merchant that was selling it, and they said they live in Mamaroneck. I said, oh, great, so do I. It was like $500 for some beautiful lawn furniture. Now, the cop in me said, that's really nice for $500, but they're selling their house, and they're trying to get rid of some stuff. So I said, okay, let me see. So right away they said, I can't show it to you right now. I can show it to you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Could you give me a down payment? I said, never forget it. Never mind. Because I knew right away it was a scam. So what people try to do is they try to entice you, either for an apartment or for a job or for lawn furniture or whatever, and see if you will buy something from them and then try to get like a down payment. If you're going to buy something on like Facebook Marketplace or some type of social media platform like Nextdoor, I'm going to suggest meet at a police department with the person, right? In front of the police department, at the desk with the police officer. Hey, officer, I'm just here. I'm buying something from someone I don't know online, and I have $500 on me. I'm meeting here just to make sure I feel safe. There's cameras here, you're here. And the person that's selling that item should feel comfortable if they're legit, right? So.
Just ask.
Yeah.
Again, the theme is there's always a sense of urgency. They want to catch you off guard. So with this furniture example, I mean, we're moving. We need, there's all these people who are interested. Down payment or else it's going to be gone. There's always that added extra sense of make a decision now quickly because they don't want to lose you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Thank you all for your guidance. I just want to pass on an observation and also ask a question. So in my routine, every couple of weeks I go online and I check my bank account activity, see if there's anything suspicious. I do the same thing with my credit card. But I also have my mother's power of attorney, and I do go online, I check her credit card information and her bank information, and if I see something that is odd, I will call her up and ask her about it. My question is for everybody here, do you have to have a do you have to have a power of attorney in order to have the ability to remotely access a relative's or a parent or grandparent's accounts just to be able to see if there's anything suspicious? Is there something short of a power of attorney? Because I think this is a really valuable tool for people that are concerned about their older relatives.
I might defer to Joanne on this question, but yes. Is the short answer. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Joanne.
I can just give a little tip or two. Just as far as power of attorney is concerned, the bank will have their own internal power of attorney, and that's just for use at that particular institution. And we go through a very rigorous process to make sure the person you are giving that power to is the right person for you in our training. Durable power of attorney has to be reviewed by the bank's legal department, again, for its validity and the extent to what can or cannot be done based on that document. But other than that, I mean, I often tell people, husband and wife, mother-daughter, they're using the same login and to monitor online banking, and we really discourage that because if a husband calls and he's using his wife's online information, the online department is going to just shut it down because they don't know that you're sharing that information. So everybody should have their own login process. Don't use someone, even if it's your spouse for 50 years, have your own. So that's a little bit more than power of attorney, right?
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's really helpful. We actually are going to, I think we have to sort of wrap up, and I know we have a room full of experts here who can answer any remaining questions, but I want to just take a moment to thank our panelists for their time, for their incredible expertise. It is indeed a scary world out there, and I'm even more scared leaving this room, but also more empowered. Very good to be right on the Apple Pay question. Thank you. And I encourage all of you to take an extra moment this morning to talk to all these experts we have in the room. Yes, and we also have great tips up here, so please come that Christine has brought about how to stay safe and smart. I know there was additional questions, so please do feel free to come and talk to our experts. Thank you, and thank you, ladies.
Thank you for a wonderful invitation. Leaving all of us a little nervous and perhaps better prepared for what may happen in all of us. Thank you all for coming for this wonderful session, and this is the last session, I want to say again, of our season. We'll see you again in September on the second Tuesday of the month. Have a wonderful summer. Thank you.